in biologically and, in a sense, spiritually, we are made in the image of an environment. That's a biological reality, if you understand how the proteins of a body respond to the environment. So every protein responds to some environmental signal. So basically our physical structure is a complement to the environmental signals. Well, reason why this becomes critical is if we destroy the environment as we are doing, then our biology is no longer complementary to the environment. And
but we've got big pharmaceutical companies to fix us.
Well,
and we can always have a war to kill off the excess humans.
Well, this is, this unfortunate thinking, because they're using some very outdated and actually unproven beliefs that are really based on a Darwinian theory that says, hey, look, we're all going to go to hell because there's going to be so many people and not enough food that we're really going to have those fights out in the streets until the death and the final victory of the fittest. That's a grand German Darwinian nightmare. And the reality is that's not even valid science anymore. Right. And basically, it says, their belief system, populations keep growing and growing and growing. Yeah, well, tell me about the United States. It's like when we were in a better harmony situation, I think the population's going up higher now because anytime organisms are in threat, the population is increased and they reproduce at younger ages. Because this is nature's way of seeing that the biological imperative is revealing that we are threatened, and how do you keep the species alive? And the answer is reproduce more.
More of them.
Yeah, and then basically, then you go back and you say, well, what about in the United States? And the answer is at one point we were below 2 children for every family, which is just replacing the existing parents. Right? So, and I said, well, how come we got so low? And the answer is, because they didn't understand something about population control. Population increases when life is hard and difficult. So when you live in India, you're going to have 5, 6, 7 kids because each kid can barely scrape out a living on their own. Right. But if you can have 7 of them scrape out and they just give you a little piece of theirs, then you can survive. So it's called Social Security. And when we have a country, like when the United States was in a much better economic situation, the concept of Social Security, what happened to the population? They stopped reproducing because the population will tend to stay stable when the security of life is made available. Right. So it's like there they are trying to say, stop having children, use condoms, and all this stuff like if you're going to stop sex. The answer is no. All you have to do is give them some assurance of their survivability, that they're safe. And the reproduction rate will essentially stop. It'll go right down.
And when everybody is taken care of and food is not a problem and good water and a roof over your head, that would resolve itself instead of pulling the rug out from underneath those who are less fortunate and sucking out the Hoover vacuum cleaner into the banks.
Yeah, well, that's the old story, isn't it, Lance?
Well, that's very old.
and it's coming to a crescendo. And so it's funny because I sit here looking at this, with the excitement of, wow, it's falling apart. And the reason why I'm excited about it is because I know we cannot build the more sustainable structure on the foundations of the world we have today, which is a Darwinian competitive world that says you got to beat the other person or they're going to kill you. It's like that's a belief system, So look at the world fighting and doing all this.
Exactly, and that's an outdated or old paradigm that isn't working, obviously, and it needs to collapse, as you said, for something new to come up like the phoenix out of the ashes. Now, another thing that you might know more about, obviously, than I do, is that everything is interconnected at the quantum level. So what we do to each other, whether it's here to there or, within our own families, affects everything, doesn't it?
This is the new biology and the new physics coming together, because the old physics, the ones that most of us learned in school, was a Newtonian physics based on a physical, mechanical, machine-like universe with parts and pieces. And I could talk about this part and not talk about that part, like they're totally two separate things. And yet, quantum physics says that's an illusion. because the physical part is actually energy itself. It's just a funny form of energy. It's a focused energy. And so the what you see as matter is actually energy, but as energy, it's also connected via the energy waves to everything else in what is called the field, which is the invisible forces that quantum physics emphasizes as the shaper of our physical reality. And you go, well, okay, wait, what does that mean? I go, the old belief Newtonian physics said the universe is made out of little atoms, which are like billiard balls that bang into each other and move around and create life and all that stuff. Quantum physics has a different understanding. It says that there aren't really physical balls at all. They're all just energy, and they're all interconnected. This is one whole giant energy universe where everything is connected. You cannot step outside of the universe and look back in. And if you can't do that, that means you are part of it. And this is why quantum physics is bringing in such a profound new insight to our world. It's been there since 1930, but the population wasn't ready for it. But now it's time. And the recognition that quantum physicists tell us is, look, the world that we're living in is based on our consciousness, that we're manifesting through our collective beliefs. And when we have a collective belief in a war exists. And if a war exists and I'm sitting here with a belief, I want peace, my little vote doesn't matter very much because it's a collective belief. So we have been culturally programmed to buy a way of life, which is a Darwinian life that says that person has more because they deserve it. It's like, wow, all right, that's really cool. But we bought that. And then we let the people get as much as they can. By how do you get as much as you can? Well, you take it from everybody else. And, that's called the world we live in. And here's why my book, why I like the book. It doesn't just say, okay, here it is, folks. Here's all the problems. This is great. Look at all the crashing and the chaos. The book says that this is a normal process. If you understand what is going on, then the future takes on a completely different appearance. And what's really going on is this. There's an evolutionary jump happening right now. And the reason why it's evolution is because we hit a crisis. And the significance of a crisis, as we've talked about, is you can't continue what you're doing because that's creating the crisis. So here's your opportunity to do something different. Well, that's the opportunity for evolution. And why this becomes very important for us right now is that I say, well, if the change does come and all this stuff comes down, what are we going to put in its place? And it's like, ancient mystics have always had a saying the answers lie within. This is the fun part, because I said, well, how can a few billion of us on this planet learn to live in harmony and peace and all that? And then I go, inside your body are 50 trillion cells. Every cell, essentially, virtually every cell in your body has all the same functions that you have that you express as a human. Cells have a digestive system, respiratory, excretory, nervous system, musculoskeletal system, an endocrine system. They even have immune system. So what does that mean? A cell has all the same functions as you. It's just smaller. So basically, it's a miniature human. And then I go in and I tell you, guess what? Look inside your body. You got 50 trillion cells. Every cell has a job. Every cell gets paid. But every cell gets the basics. Every cell gets food. Every cell gets protection. Every cell gets health care. And no matter what George Bush was trying to say in this real environment, it's an environment where no cell is left behind. And why is it relevant? Because I give you an example that if we applied this today, how it would change the world. And it goes like this. The biology has coins of the realm, they call it, money in the form of energy molecules. They're just units of energy. They're just like dollar bills. You can buy something with this energy. So the body creates the energy from its work. Now, what's interesting is this. There is no wealth in the system until every cell gets the basics of life. Wow. In other words, the system can produce this energy, this wealth, but there's no wealth in the system until every cell gets the basics of life. Food, place to sleep, a job, something to do, and get paid for it. Now, why the next step becomes relevant is this. So, not all the cells get the same pay. Skin cells don't work as hard as neurons, so neurons get lots of energy, these ATP molecules. And in fact, neurons make so much energy money that they actually have entourages. They have other cells that support them. And they pay them. Okay, so the idea is, so it says everybody gets the basics, and then the amount extra above that is based on your job. But then here comes the neat part. But a cell makes a limit of how much it can have. It has more than it needs. It has more than it needs, but once it exceeds what it needs to a certain level, then guess what? All the extra energy is returned to the entire community. And the community bank, and I have deposits, unfortunately they're called fat deposits, but that's a community bank that's on me right now. So it says, okay, my cells did really pretty good, and we got a lot in the bank. And the relevance about this is that's the equivalent of the central resources that cover things like if I break my leg. Like, if I break my leg and I have 50 trillion cells, you think, well, are they going to get together? And some cells, I don't want to pay for that. And the reality is, no, of course not. Basically, it all comes out of the central resources. So basically, it comes down and says this. There is no wealth in the system until every cell is guaranteed a life right. And then once that's guaranteed, then cells can accumulate extra wealth until they reach a limit. Right. And then past that limit, all the other wealth then really goes into the central bank, which covers the entire 50 trillion cells if they need something, including making another human. And I say, wow. And
that's
they
amazing.
do this. It is. And it's interesting because it was funny, I just recently saw Michael Moore's Corporations, A Love Story.
I did too, just yesterday.
Did you really? Because that part that got me was, until before Reagan, the rich paid, the very, very rich, paid 92% taxes. And as they showed, it's like, well, that didn't make them poor. They were still as rich as anybody could be, even with the 92% taxes taken out.
Yeah.
But that 92% went back into the community bank. So guess what? Before Reagan, our economy was much more like a healthy body in the sense that we were entitled to make money. Unfortunately, there were no limits and caps, but the limits came when they did make that much money, then their tax rate was so high that was like putting the limitation back on. And it went back into the system, and it worked. And it worked so much more beautifully than where we are now, because now the rich don't pay any taxes. And yet they're the ones that suck the energy out of the system. So a single individual can have like $60 billion, and then there's like a billion people out there with $60, for their whole life. So basically says, wow, that doesn't happen in the body. The cells are in a community. And we have lost community, and that's what the evolution is going to thrust upon us to get through this time that's coming. The first stages are build the communities back up.
That is so beautifully said, because we have the model. According to what you're saying, we have the template right inside us that's working and has always worked. And, the Native Americans have talked about this since the beginning of time, about returning to the earth and the energy of the mother and the father. And
absolutely. Then they were dead right on the science, because we actually did come from Father Sky and Mother Earth, and the way it works out is like, it sounds like mythology, but I go, no, before there was life on this planet, the chemistry was called inorganic chemistry. The chemistry of rocks and dirt and minerals and things like that, inorganic, not living. Where did the life come from? Something called organic chemistry. I say, yeah, but where did that come from? That's the result of sunlight, the energy of sunlight being fused into inorganic chemistry, and that enlightened chemistry is called organic chemistry. And so what does it represent? It's the building blocks of life, and but what does it represent? Mother Earth, and the light is from Father Sky. Like, wow, they were right. They knew it, baby.
and they were happy.
Well, that's the whole idea. That's why they founded the United States. The United States was founded because this period back in the early 1700s, called the Age of Enlightenment, spoke of a world